بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على رسول سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا وتوفيقا وإخلاصا وفقا في الدين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. And welcome back to the Hadith Halaqa. Today inshallah we'll continue with the subsection in regards to abusing others, the impermissibility, the prohibition of abusing others, swearing at others. وبه قال حدثنا إبراهيم بن موسى قال أخبرني يحيى بن زكريا بن أبي زائدة عن زكريا عن أبي إسحاق عن محمد بن سعد بن مالك عن أبيه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال سباب المسلم فسوق. Sa'ad bin Malik radiallahu anhu reports that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, to swear or revile a Muslim is wicked, it is evil, it is from fisq. وبه قال حدثنا محمد بن سنان قال حدثنا فليح بن سليمان قال حدثنا هلال بن علي عن أنس قال لم يكن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فاحشا ولا لعانا ولا سبابا كان يقول عند المعتبة ما له ترب جبينه. وبه قال حدثنا سليمان بن حرب قال حدثنا شعبة عن زبيد قال سمعت أبا وائل عبد الله رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم سباب المسلم فسوق وقتاله كفر. Anas radiallahu anhu reports that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not given to using abusive, cursive, or reviling language. If he took offense, he said in reference to the one who caused it, what is wrong with him? May his forehead be dusty. In the next narration, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud reports that the Prophet ﷺ said, to revile a Muslim, to swear at a Muslim is wicked, and to fight him is tantamount to disbelief. Or specifically to fight him with the intention of harming him, with the intention of killing him, is tantamount to disbelief. The Prophet ﷺ, he provided a practical example of what Islam means in actual life. When his beloved wife, Lady Aisha radiallahu anha, was asked to describe his manners, she said, and this has passed in hadith number 309, كَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ. His manners were the Quran in practice. It is for this reason that Allah Azza wa Jal has made it a requirement of our faith that we should follow the example of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in everything we do. Very often we deduce the Islamic rule on a particular situation on the basis of what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did in similar situations. The second of these three hadith shows his guidance in restraining oneself from abusing others. Perhaps it is most important to explain the expression, may his forehead be dusty. So when someone said something to the Prophet ﷺ which was abusive, or if they would curse him, then if he took offense, what would he say in reference to the one who caused it? What is wrong with him? May his forehead be dusty. مَا لَهُ تَرِبَ جَبِينُ. Now, this is one of those expressions which every language contains and which are used so frequently as to lose their literal meaning. They lose their literal meaning. And literally, it's a supplication that the person concerned fall on his face to the ground, and in doing so, the person's forehead becomes dusty. The Prophet ﷺ did not, however, mean this literally. Just as it was used as an expression amongst the masses, they wouldn't mean it literally. The Prophet ﷺ likewise did not mean it literally. It's simply an expression denoting disapproval. And there are other expressions like this in Arabic as well. Taribat yadak. May your hands become dusty. Thaqilatka ummuk. This one sounds even harsher when it's translated literally. May your mother lose you. Right? But the literal meaning is not intended. The literal meaning is not intended. Rather, it's an expression to denote disapproval. And Allah Azza wa Jal answered the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's every single prayer. Had he meant this prayer literally, people would have seen that person actually falling to the ground on his face. Because the Prophet ﷺ was mustajab da'wat. Anything he said would come true if he made a dua, and this is a dua if taken literally. It's a dua against the person, a dua for some slight harm. Nevertheless, no harm befell this individual. But the Prophet ﷺ did not pray that someone should come to any harm except in the case, and I've mentioned this before as well, except in the case when there was a sworn enemy of Islam who would cause harm to Islam and the Muslims. If it was ever a personal attack for the Prophet on the Prophet ﷺ, he wouldn't take vengeance. He wouldn't exact revenge. So the Prophet ﷺ did not respond proportionately. The Prophet ﷺ did not use any vile language, even if anyone used vile language against him. Anas radiallahu anh was one man who knew all of the Prophet ﷺ's habits and how he reacted in all situations. He tells us categorically that the Prophet ﷺ was not one who used to be abusive. He wouldn't curse others. He wouldn't use reviling language. He always said what was good. And furthermore, the Prophet ﷺ taught us by way of example. His companions noticed that he didn't use such language, and so they too refrained from using abusive language. And moreover, they've told us about this, and the reason why the Sahaba have told us about this, so that we may do likewise. So we may follow in the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ. You will always find believers refraining from such language, true believers, because they find the use of this language repugnant and repulsive. So the other two ahadith clearly illustrate this. Perhaps it's important to explain that the Prophet ﷺ is referring here to the worst type of reviling, as in the case when a person is totally unscrupulous when he speaks ill of another. And he speaks haphazardly. He doesn't control his tongue. Whatever comes to his mind, he says it. He doesn't think twice. This is very detrimental. This is very dangerous for a person's well-being in this life and in the akhirah. He doesn't confine himself to pointing out the other person's bad qualities. And what he does instead is he hurls ad hominem attacks. Meaning if someone has a disagreement with you and there is an argument to be made, there's a point to be made in the discussion, an argument, and if you do not have a rebuttal and you resort to personal attacks, this is completely unjustified and wrong. However, this is very common, especially on social media. Especially on social media, a person makes a point and then someone else disagrees with that point, and sometimes right away that person who disagrees, he starts attacking the one whom he disagrees with personally, not attacking the argument. This shows the lack of intellect of the individual. Low IQ individuals are those who attack others personally, ad hominem attacks. No, if you have a problem with the argument or with the point, then attack the point intellectually. And this is something common, even unfortunately, it's not restricted to social media. This you find on news outlets and very big news channels, very popular news channels have people come on, and the back and forth is not academic. Even mainstream media. And this is why it's very important for us, especially students of knowledge, to learn this subject, to learn the science of dialectics. Adab al-Bahth wal-Munadhara, how to debate. Especially if someone is giving da'wah, if someone is involved in this da'wah sphere or in the circle of giving da'wah and preaching to Islam. You have unfortunately, many du'at who are not trained, many preachers who are not trained in these ancillary sciences, these basic level sciences. They're not trained in logic. So first and foremost, the arguments that they're presenting, they're not even logically sound or valid. Many a times they possess fallacies. Many a times their arguments are fallacious. And above and beyond that, if they're having a discussion with someone, they don't even know the rules of debate. And they think just getting loud and using these bully tactics or these gotcha moments are what's going to win them the debate. That is not even the purpose of the debate. It's not. When giving da'wah, you're not trying to win a debate. You're trying to win the person's heart over. And this was, subhanAllah, the message of Islam from the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, he was very, very intelligent. And I'm highlighting his emotional intelligence. He would read the room, he would read the situation, and he would address the person accordingly. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He tells us in the Quran, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbik bil hikmah wal maw'idhati al hasana wajadilhum billati hi ahsan." Some of the mufassirun, they mention, if I'm not mistaken, Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi rahmatullahi alayhi, he says that Allah Azza wa Jal is highlighting over here 3 types of debate, and depending on whom you're debating or whom you're speaking to. The addressee. If the addressee is someone who's convinced when you use wisdom, then you take that approach. You be wise when you're speaking to him. If that person requires just a kind word, al-maw'idatul hasana, some motivation, some encouragement, just a little push, then do that. And if the person is not won over by kind, soft words or even wisdom, then sometimes you have to put it into next gear, وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ, and you have to debate that person. Over here, mujadala is referring to debate, but according to the rules of debate. So this is something that we have to keep in mind when speaking to everyone. This is something we can use on day-to-day language, even when we're speaking with our family members. Sometimes our children, and don't underestimate your children. Don't underestimate their intellect. You know, sometimes, subhanAllah, children are critical thinkers. So they may present a very sophisticated argument, and the father or the mother doesn't know how to respond, and they get loud or they get angry. This is very unhealthy, because the child will pick up on that. The child will pick up on, especially if it's in regards to the religion of Islam. We need to learn. We need to learn. Rabbi zidni ilma. Why is this such an important dua? It's a Quranic dua, right? Rabbi zidni ilma. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal for knowledge, right? To increase us in knowledge. So now, when a person swears or uses abusive language, there's no doubt about that this is wicked. It is something evil. It's not something positive or good. So what about fighting a Muslim? The Prophet ﷺ says, قِتَالُهُ كُفْرٌ. He says, قِتَالُهُ كُفْرٌ. So what about fighting a Muslim, which the Prophet ﷺ describes here as tantamount, equivalent to disbelief? He certainly doesn't mean a rejection of the Islamic faith altogether, because a person may actually believe in Allah and the message of Islam and yet still fight another Muslim. Some scholars explain that this applies to a person who thinks that fighting a Muslim is permissible, istihlal. He makes the act of fighting a Muslim in his mind permissible. That person is out of the fold of Islam. Why? Because believing anything that is haram to be halal takes a person out of the fold of Islam, or vice versa. Believing anything halal to be haram takes a person out of the fold of Islam. That's why we have to be very careful. Where many people are haphazard when asked the question, "Oh, is this haram?" No, this is permissible. And if it's actually haram, out of the fold, or vice versa. Is this halal? Some extremists, they say, "No, brother, this is haram." And if it's actually halal, we have to be very careful. And this is why this isn't the job of the average Joe like you and I. The job of saying what is halal, what is haram, is the job of the experienced, and not only experienced, rather the knowledgeable scholar, the knowledgeable alim, to the extent that even the codifier of the Hanafi madhab, so to speak, or the direct student of Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani. Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, rahmatullahi alayh, is a key figure in the Hanafi madhab, right? A key figure in the Hanafi madhab. He compiled the works of his teacher of the Hanafi madhab in Zahir al-Riwayah and other books as well. And if you read just a glimpse of a popular book of his, Al-Asl or Al-Mabsut, two names for the same book. Now, you read in there, majority of the times, when he is speaking on a ruling, he will not say, uh, he won't use the verbs in regards to something being impermissible, حرم or haram, هذا haram. No, he would say, لا أحب هذا. I don't like this, or I don't love this, or this is disliked to me, or this was disliked to my teacher Imam Abu Hanifa or the Prophet ﷺ. So he would use these types of wording. Why? Because of his scrupulousness, how careful he was. Subhanallah. And nowadays we have people who aren't even half-baked scholars. They're outright ignorant individuals who have the audacity to issue legal verdicts, whether online or in person. This is not for the faint of heart, and this isn't for the average Joe. Only the skilled alim, the skilled scholar is the one to issue these verdicts. Because ultimately what you're doing is you are speaking on behalf of Allah Azza wa Jal and His Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam when saying something about the religion of Islam. So, if a person believes that fighting a Muslim is permissible, then he's actually an unbeliever, right? Other scholars, they argue that a Muslim is entitled to be helped by all other Muslims, and he is entitled to be spared by all harm by them. So therefore, when a person fights another, he is actually denying the other these rights to which he is entitled. Perhaps the Prophet ﷺ only means here to give a stern warning against indulging in a fight with another Muslim, whether by word or action, whether it's a verbal fight or a physical fight, using one's hands or a weapon. All of this is unacceptable. Relations between Muslims must always remain friendly, intimate, and based on mutual care and consideration. In such a relationship, there is no room for using abusive language or for any fighting. Using abusive language does not achieve any purpose. It can only bring the user something he dislikes. And the Prophet ﷺ tells us that all abusive language, it rebounds on the one who uses it. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to save us from these calamities and to protect our tongues. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us intellect. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant us knowledge. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive all of our shortcomings. And we don't even realize sometimes we say something hurtful to others, we swear at others. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to forgive us for all of the times we may have harmed someone without even realizing, without even knowing. We ask Allah Azza wa Jal to grant all of us Jannatul Firdaus. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.